All right, it's the top of the hour, so let's begin. My name's Sheldon. I am a marketing manager here at Guava and want to welcome everybody here to our Guava Retain for a Release webinar. We're excited to present this one. There are a lot of people here today. I'm here with Q Meng, the Director of Product Marketing here at Guava. He will be presenting today. Usually we do more of a question and answer style webinar, but there's a lot of material to get through. But just so you know, at any point, if you do have questions, please put those in the Q&A or the chat, and Q will be sure to address those. And then there will also be a Q&A at the end as well. And with that, I think I will hand it off to Q.
Thanks, Sheldon, and thanks everyone for being here. We're really happy to bring you this information, and I know there's been a lot of anticipation about this release, and so we're really excited to be able to show you what's new in Retain, what's new in this release, and just a few items also to take note of is at the end we're going to show you where you can go to make sure to get upgraded to Retain. To Retain 4. All current customers are eligible for this upgrade, so make sure that you get upgraded, and we'll talk more about that towards the end of the webinar. And yeah, as Sheldon said, we will have some time at the end for Q&A, so please feel free to put those through in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to those as we go through. Just for the benefit of a number of people who are on this call, as Sheldon was saying, we do have a large number here, and we're really excited that you could be here. And so we're grateful to bring this information to you, but just for the benefit of some of those who may not be familiar with Retain, I'm just going to take a little bit of time really quick to go over Retain, what the benefits are, how it's different from other solutions. And this is going to be beneficial for those of you who are not using Retain, and maybe for some that are using Retain, just to see what other parts of Retain there are that you may not be using. So we'll get into that really quick, and then, of course, I will get into what Retain 4 has and what the latest release features are. So just as I said, as a review, Retain, we call it the Unified Archiving Solution. And the reason for that subtitle, I guess you'd call it, is that Retain is different than our other archiving solutions in the sense that all electronic communication is archived in one central location. And that's what we mean by unified archiving. You don't have to have multiple solutions for each kind of electronic communication that you're using. So if you have email, which most of us do, right? Whatever your email solution is, whether that's Exchange, Office 365, Gmail, or GroupWise, that will be archived in Retain. Plus, mobile communication is archived in Retain, web searches, and social media. And I'll get into those a little bit more in-depthly, but just know that is what makes Retain different, is that you have one central archive that archives all your electronic communication. And what's great about that idea is that you don't have to have those separate solutions. If you want to find email that has been archived, you can go to one archive. If you want to find social media, go to that same archive. And the other thing about that is that it can grow as you grow. So let's say that today you're using email and you have an email solution, and tomorrow you're going to change your email solution. And then in a few months, you're going to go to and start implementing an instant messaging solution. What's great is that if you're using email archiving today, you can expand Retain to be able to now, down the road, archive instant messaging. It's that idea that you have an investment in an archiving solution that can grow with you as your company and your needs grow. And as I stated, to begin with, the email portion of Retain, it supports mixed messaging environments. So if you're using, let's say you're in an environment that's running GroupWise and Exchange, or Exchange and Office 365, or Office 365 and Gmail, which can be pretty common for universities and whatnot, you have the ability to have multiple systems archived into one central archive, and it supports those multiple systems. On the email side of it, there is certain things that it archives, right? It archives all email, all attachments, appointments, files, and it's done in a single instance storage. So your size of your archive is going to be reduced, which will then improve, and also those messages are taken off of the email server, so that will improve the the performance of your email system because it's off of the archive and it's in Retain. And from within Retain, there's great ability to search and the ability to perform e-discovery and publish and perform redaction and export to PDF. And I'll be showing a little bit of that here as we're going through. And here is a view of the Retain archive. This is the Web Access Archive Viewer. And what's great about the Web Access Archive Viewer is, and Retain in general, is that we replicate the folder structure over. So when your users go to their archive and they can access their own personal archive, it looks like the email client, right? It looks familiar to them. And so they can browse that archive. End users have access, as I said, to their own archive. From there, they can perform functions like they can restore to their own email system. They can forward if need be. There are rights that you can offer to your end users depending on what you need. And then the other great thing is with Retain, you can have other named users within the solution to be able to do other things. Like say you want a legal team to be able to come into your archive and search that. You can grant rights to the legal. They can place litigation holds. They can tag messages. They can forward them, export. They can restore. What's great is you have that ability from within Retain to grant rights to different teams so that IT isn't burdened with doing all of those things. We know that that is something that can happen when it comes to dealing with collaboration solutions, right? That end users are looking for an email that they have lost, or they're looking for an email that needs to be restored to their live system, and they can burden IT with that. And then, of course, if you're involved in litigation or some sort of e-discovery or regulatory audit, there's a chance that that burden is going to fall on IT to be able to search the archive, and you don't want that. If you have the ability to have an outside auditor or a legal team or an inside counsel be able to search your archive, it's that much better because now you're freeing up your IT team to do what they specialize in. So now there's another piece to Retain. Now this is something that those who are using Retain or are familiar with Retain may not be familiar with. This piece is a relatively new piece within the last year or two, and that is Retain Social. So what Retain Social does is it's more than just the archiving piece. We've talked a lot about archiving and how Retain is that central and unified archiving. Well, with Retain Social, it's more than just the archive. What Retain Social does is it actually monitors, filters, and blocks in addition to archiving social media, instant messaging, and web searches. So the supported platforms are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Yammer when it comes to social media. And for instant messaging, it's Link and /Skype for Business. The names are interchangeable. Link, Microsoft recently changed the name of Link to Skype for Business. Google Hangouts, Yahoo Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, those are the instant messaging solutions that are supported. And then for web searches, you have Google, Yahoo, Bing, Wikipedia, and YouTube searches. All of those, as you can see that are on this screen here, are supported with Retain Social. And what's great is that there's this policy-based content monitoring. So if you have employees that are accessing social media at work on the network, Retain Social acts as there's what we call the Retain Social Media Compliance Proxy. So as social media postings are being put out to the web, traffic is routed through the proxy, which is actually integrated with the firewall. So it'll go to the firewall and then route through the proxy. And then with that proxy, you can set policies to be able to filter content and block it if it's not something that you want posted, if it violates your policies, if it's something that's inappropriate or that fits those policies. That can be filtered and blocked based on what you set. And there are default policies that are in Retain Social so that you don't have to set them up. It will be, there are industry standard things that are in there to begin with, but you can set those up as well. So what that does, and then it applies to instant messaging as well, as your employees are accessing instant messaging, they're chatting via via Skype, for example, Skype for Business, for example. Retain Social can monitor and filter those messages and block them and allow them as needed. And I'll show you one piece of that in just a minute. But the idea here is to be proactive, right? An archive is a reactive solution. It's something that you have you have this archive that you can search and you can find patterns. You can see what's going on in your organization. You can be prepared for litigation. But with this social media monitoring and archiving, and works for instant messaging and web search, you can actually prevent things from happening. You can keep your employees from posting things that they may not, that you may not want them to post. A couple of great things about it as well is that an administrator will get notification of a message that violates policy. It won't get posted to the web, but it will still be archived. And then there's a social media access portal, which is a really cool thing too. So if you want to be able to allow certain users to access your corporate social media and be able to post there and be able to view what's going on, you can grant them rights through Retain Social to be able to do that without actually giving them the password. So what's great about that is that now you have provisioning. You have the ability to have control over who has access to it. So if you have turnover, you don't have to worry about that person still having your password to your social media account because they never had it in the first place. You just set them up in Retain Social. Now they have the ability to go into corporate social media, access it, post, without ever actually having the login credentials. It's just all done through the Retain. And then I talked a lot about how it's Retain Social is for on the network. There is an agent or an application that is used for off-network monitoring and archiving, and that works for Windows and Mac machines. And that's just something that you would install on the machine. Then it would also work as that proxy to be able to prevent things from being posted, and it will also push information to the Retain archive as well. And then, just a quick view of, like I was saying before, the traffic is rated through the Retain Social Compliance proxy and into Retain, and then, of course, your users, administrators, etc., can access that. And then here's a great view of what's great, as I talked about before, this ability to block messages that violate policy or that are inappropriate. When a user tries to do that, for example, on this screen grab that I have here, a user tried to post something that blocked policy or that was against policy, and they got a pop-up that told them that, and it looked like it came from Facebook itself. And so that's something that's great, that it looks seamless to your users. It looks like something that's coming from Facebook. It prevents them from posting. And, of course, that message is archived, as I stated. Here, I know this view is kind of hard to see on this screen, but just know that here's an example of where you'd set up the rules. Mainly I put this in here so that you can see all the different rules that you can set up. There's text search and pattern matching. You can limit by application type. So there's a lot of ways in which you can set up policies and rules to prevent your employees from posting things that maybe they shouldn't. Now let's, as I stated, I'm going to get through the rest of these slides pretty quick so that we can get into the brunt of the Retain 4 information. But let me just hit really quick on the mobile side of it. Once again, for those who aren't familiar with Retain or may not be using the mobile side of it, let's talk just a few minutes about what Retain Mobile is. So as a high-level thing, Retain Mobile securely archives all SMS, MMS, and phone call logs for Android, as well as BBM, PIN, SMS, MMS, and phone call logs for BlackBerry. Plus, Retain integrates directly with the BBM. Oh, looks like the slide has a typo there, but it's BBM protected. Retain integrates directly with BBM protected, so if you're using that on mobile devices, that encrypted, it's a great solution to be able to have encrypted instant messaging be on mobile. It's BlackBerry Messenger protected. Retain integrates directly with that so that messages from BBM Protected can be archived and retained. And that BBM Protected is available on iOS and Android and BlackBerry devices. And then specifically for iOS, we've partnered with a company called CellTrust, and what we do there is there's actually an app that you deploy onto the phones that separates personal data from corporate data. And what this app does is it assigns a separate mobile business number to the device, and this allows employees to call via this app, and it's all business phone calls and texts. And so now that data is separate, so if you have employees that are bringing their own device, you have the ability to let them still use their personal device for personal things, yet use that same device to be able to do business communication, whether that's text or calling. And what we do with Retain is we integrate directly with that CellTrust app and archive those messages, archive those phone call logs. And what's great is that now you have an enterprise-ready solution for iOS without needing to tether or sync the device, without having to try and get the messages from the carrier. I know there's other archiving solutions that will archive at the carrier level, which can be problematic because now you have to archive everything. You don't have a choice of archiving business or personal. It has to archive everything on that device. And that's where that dual persona is great, to be able to have the ability to separate personal and business. But as you're probably all well aware of, mobile communication is getting bigger and bigger, right? We've seen an infiltration of mobile devices in your organizations, and it's imperative that you have a handle on what to do with that and have that oversight on mobile communication. And that's why it's important to have Retain Mobile, and that's why we developed that solution, is to be able to give you that oversight on those mobile communications. Here's a view really quick of an example. As we talked about, I touched on the unified archive. Here's an example of a search. We'll get into this more as we talk about the Retain 4 stuff and what the search is and how the search has improved. But the idea here is that there's one location to search and all your messages would come across. For example, in this screen grab, you have a YouTube search that's come across, in Twitter, Facebook, and some text messages that have come across that you can see from one central search. And like I said, we'll show a little bit more of that. But just know that everything, when you do a search, everything is displayed in one central location, no matter what way that communication happened, whether that was email, social media, mobile, instant messaging. And then one other thing too is we do have a plugin for those who are using Outlook. We have a plugin for Outlook to be able to find and access the Retain directly from Outlook. And the nice thing too is that the messages are synced. You can do that to sync messages in Outlook and cache them so that if you have users that are occasionally offline, they can still access the Retain archive because they will be cached within Outlook. And they can perform some things directly from Outlook, like searches, and then they can actually go directly to the Retain Web Access Viewer from here. And for those on GroupWise, there's also a GroupWise plugin as well that functions similarly. So now let's get into what I think most of us are here for and what everyone's been waiting for, and that's Retain 4. I want to review some of this latest release of Retain, and then like I said, we're going to give you some information on how to upgrade and what to do and what your next steps are from here. And for those of you who are not using Retain, I would encourage you to check it out as well and give it a test run, see how it will work for you, and put that unified archiving into practice so that you can be prepared for litigation, you can manage your information, and you can see what's going on in your organization and have those insights into what is happening. So once again, I'll give you a plug for those who aren't using Retain. Feel free to try it out, and I'll give you some information on what to do from here. So first and foremost, a big thing that has happened, as you can see from this screenshot, and I know I kind of spoiled it with the other screenshots that I had, on previous slides, but Retain has a completely redesigned UI. There's also a new logo for Retain, but the login screen, the UI is completely redesigned, more streamlined. It's going to be easier for your users and your administrators to use. So that's the big thing aesthetically, is you'll notice right when you upgrade to Retain 4 that there is that new look and feel. Now, when it comes to the meat of it, the big thing that is one of my favorite things, and I think that a lot of us are really going to appreciate, and that's the new advanced search tool. What's great is that you have the ability to quickly and easily search that stored data. And I'm going to show this to you in a little bit, but what's great about this tool is it gives you results as you begin to request the information. So what happens is as you're starting to type in that term that you're looking for, Retain will start to give you suggestions of what you should be searching, and it's going to search the subject, body, email addresses, tags, users, and other data points. So as you're typing that in, it's going to bring you back results instantaneously, and it's going to give you suggestions. So once again, it's going to make that ability, that search so much better because you'll have instant results. And the search results start to appear after you type 3 letters, numbers, or other special characters. And as I stated, you'll get suggested words or sets of words as you enter those search terms. And those searched items could include, names, email address, subjects, departments, phone numbers, project titles. Those kind of things will come back as you are searching. And another thing, too, to just be aware of, and I know this is really good for those who are familiar with this, is that Retain now supports limited regular expression terms, regex terms. So like a social security number, a credit card number, or other relevant numbers, you can actually find those using those regex terms. And then a couple other things just to take note of. When you're typing, it will show you number of hits, and like I said, I'll show that to you in just a moment here. And the hits are organized into the following fields. The following areas. You have fields, which are subject, sender, recipient, domain, attachment name, message content, and category scope. Message content. And then you have mail, phone messages, appointments, tasks, notes, SMS, MMS, phone call logs, BBM, PIN, wall posts. Anyway, and I'll show that a little bit here. I realize that I'm saying a lot here, but the point is that these hits are organized into areas, and we'll show that in just a minute here. Another thing that's cool is you have the duplicate query removal. So what Retain does, it automatically removes duplicate records from the search results. So if there's a message that's part of the same thread, it's not going to be shown. Only the original message is displayed. So that's going to help reduce the number of hits for a specific search because you're not going to have to wade through things that are duplicate. And then there's advanced searches, and the advanced search tab gives you the ability to search and group searches across 27 fields, including tags and status. And one other thing, too, with the advanced search is you can do other Boolean searchings, like I said, with and you can create a nested query where 2 keywords are searched at the same time. And I'll show you a little bit of that as well. So here's a screenshot, and like I said, I'll show you towards the end a little bit. I'm going to bring up Retain and show you just this in practice. But as you can see here, as you start to type in, you get that result of what you've typed, and now it's going to tell you the number of hits. And like I said, I'll share this with you so you can see it a little better. But you can see how the search term is highlighted in the search results, and then you have these categories that they're organized into. Okay, next we have the Retain high-performance indexing engine. So what's great here is that with Retain, you now have this ability to have this high-performance indexing engine. Now, Lucene is still supported and is the default in Retain. However, for the indexing engine. However, the high-performance indexing engine is great, especially for those who have larger installs. And the reason being is that this engine is clusterable, so it can support an unlimited amount of search requests, and you can have load balancing for increased performance and failover, and you can spin up multiple indexes. So if you need to, let's say that as you're archiving, you're noticing there's a latency in your indexing, you can spin up another engine that's outside of Retain to be able to now index quicker. So that's the great thing with this high-performance indexing engine, is to be able to have this ability to spin up multiple indexing engines to be able to index quicker and to be able to ensure that your archive that you're doing on a daily or nightly or weekly basis is done quickly, and it finishes before you have to do another one. And what's great too is that with this index, it makes a near zero latency between the time a message is archived and when it's indexed and available to search. So that's a great thing that we're really excited for, and hope that you can see how that could help your organization, especially those larger installs. Okay, a few things, and then I'll get into some of the demo stuff here. Other things to take note of with Retain is you have now we have native support for ICAS Technology. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this, or maybe you are, is ICAS Technology it's a patented content storage container technique that actually bundles archive data with corresponding metadata into a special archive container where it's secured against manipulation and unauthorized deletion. So it's this making it a more secure, and if you need that in your organization, there is that support for ICAS Technology for having that that storage container to bundle that archive and have that secure. Furthermore, there's this portion that's called message deletion. So what this does is it actually allows you to create policies and reduce storage space and server load on Exchange, Office 365, or GroupWise. So what you can do is actually from within Retain, and I know this has been a much requested feature, from within Retain you can create policies to delete the messages off of Exchange, Office 365, or GroupWise, depending on what you want. So if you have messages that are older than 60 days and are getting archived in Retain, you can also set up a policy to then, in Retain, to then delete those messages off of those email systems, just depending on how you set that up. So now you have the ability that from Retain to be able to delete those messages off of the email server after it exceeds the policies that you set up, like the retention age is an example. So what does that mean? Now you don't have to go into Exchange, Office 365, or GroupWise and set the policies up there. You can do that from within Retain. One other thing that I realized I didn't put on this slide, and I'm going to just go back to our other slide here that I failed to mention is, and I'll show this in just a minute as well, is that one other thing, and I know a lot of our customers have asked for this, so I hope you're excited for this, is that in the search, these columns are now sortable. So now you have the ability to click on each one of these. If you're on subject, recipient, date, etc., you can now sort those. You can click on that, and now it will sort those based on date and alphabetically or whatnot. So I'll show that in just a minute, but that's a great thing. I know that that's been something that's been asked for a while, but now these columns can be sorted. So I want to show really quick, once again, as I stated, all current Retain customers are eligible for this Retain 4.0 upgrade. I've put the URL there. Let me throw that into the chat. So everybody, if you want to visit that URL and get, it's just a little overview here. Let me grab my chat. It's, here we go. Okay. That if you visit that, and I'm going to pull the URL up here or pull that up really quick here. That is a little overview of how to upgrade. So give me just a minute here. I'm going to share my screen and just show that, and then we're going to show one other thing, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So we're doing really good on time here. Okay. Okay, we'll give it just a second here to share. Okay, so here you can see this is just a view of that PDF. And by visiting that URL, you'll go to this PDF. I just wanted to take a note of a couple of things. This is a big thing to remember, that if you're upgrading to Retain 4, you have to get a new license for it to actually function. Without that license, you will not be able to use Retain 4. So I want everyone who's going to upgrade to Retain 4, please contact your territory rep and get that license before you even go down the path of trying to upgrade to Retain 4. Once again, if you're using an older version of Retain, you need to make sure that your system is upgraded to Retain 3.5 plus. If you're not at that, you first have to upgrade to that. And within this PDF, there is a knowledge base article on how to upgrade from Retain 2 to 3, and then 3 to 3.5. So there's some information there on how to do that. And then I would encourage you, before you go and do that upgrade, to go ahead and review this document. It has a lot of information about how you can do that upgrade and what that will entail. And then you can, start to use the great power of Retain 4. Let's grab this other one here. One thing too, just so everyone can try this out, I would encourage you, if you want to see how Retain 4 will work for you, both those who are using or not, who are currently using Retain or are not, go ahead and go to demo.guava.com, click on Retain. There you'll be able to, it'll show you the credentials to log in. It's the user ID is guest, the password is password. Hard, right? And then you can go into Retain here. You can see how it sets up. You can see how to configure the server, how to set up rules, modules. You can set up your profiles for each of the different modules. You can set up the schedules. You can get to documentation from there and be able to learn all about what Retain is, how to upgrade, as we talked about, what the modules mean, etc. So go to demo.guava.com. It's going to give you a demo version of Retain. Play around with it. See how it will work for you. Now, I'm going to show really quick that advanced search, that new search tool, just to show you in practice. Let me go ahead and type in a search term. As you can see, I got suggestions for what came across. This is suggestions based on the body, the subject, etc. I was able to get the hits. I found that there's 7,662 in the subject, 712 in sender, 24 in recipient. So you can search in those different things. You can modify that depending on the search that you need. You can change the scope, right? If you only want to find SMS that has those messages, you can do that. If you want to only find appointments, you can filter by that. So you can say the scope of that, which is great. See a pin messages. So that's what's great here with that search is you can limit that scope really quick. You can limit the source. You can do the date range right from here. You can limit mailboxes. We've made this search that much easier to use to really increase the ability for you to be able to easily and quickly find messages and make it that much easier for you to go into that unified archive, as we call it. There's tags that you can search, other miscellaneous litigation holds, confidential states, addresses that you can search directly as well. So we tried to make that search that much more powerful to be able to help you find the messages that you need to find within Retain and find them quick and easy. And then, as I stated before, the message, the item that you are searching is highlighted in the results over here as well. So yes, back to that. That's a big thing in Retain, and really encourage you to, as I said, test this out, get upgraded to Retain 4 so that you can see and get to these messages quicker. So that looks like everything that we wanted to cover in Retain 4. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to stop sharing here, go back to the presentation. And let's go through some questions here as we have some. So I'm going to look through and see if some came through directly to me. So one that came through on the chat is VoIP going to be on your roadmap? So I'm assuming archiving voice over IP. That's something that we're working towards. Actually, the next step that we're looking at right now is being able to archive mobile phone call files. So as a phone call is made, we'll be able to archive like a WAV file and a transcript of that WAV file. That should be coming shortly. So there will be a mobile side of that to be able to archive recorded phone calls. But on the VoIP, that's not something that we currently have, but maybe something that we could look into. Let's see, is the retained cache encrypted? Yes, there is encryption on both the archive and then the cache that's in Outlook. Keith, I'll get you more information on exactly how that is done in the Outlook plugin. Let's see. Oh, and sorry, someone asked me to increase the font size of the browser when I was showing that. I already went off of that. What I'll do in just a minute is I'll go back to that retain search, and we can look at that in just a moment again. Another question is the new license is free, right? Yeah, absolutely. If you're current on your subscription or your maintenance for Retain, your upgrade to Retain 4 is free. So there's not an additional cost for that. Obviously, if you're not up to date, get up to date, and then you'll be included in that. The next one, is there a pure cloud option for Retain? Yes, absolutely. There is. You can, depending on where you're located. So in North America, we have a data centers that will be able to host Retain for you. So there's a cloud archiving, and then there's geographic clouds as well, depending on what you need. So if you're in Europe, there's geographic clouds depending on requirements for your country. I know that that's something that's pretty strict over there, that your data needs to reside within your country. So that's something where we've worked with our partners to ensure that we have cloud data centers that are regional for your needs. So yes, there is a cloud option, and that's a subscription-based model there. Let's see, when is the .1 release scheduled? Yes, Retain 4.1 should be soon. I've been told that it's within the next few weeks, so look for that to be coming up shortly. Okay, so next we have, does Outlook work with all archives, GroupWise, Exchange, Social, etc.? So yes, that Outlook plugin, if you're archiving social media and other email systems, when you do a search, or excuse me, that Outlook plugin will go directly to Retain. So when they do a search, you'll be able to search the entire archive. So results will come across from everything. So yes, the Outlook plugin and in turn also the GroupWise plugin would be able to find everything that's in the archive. Now, when it comes to the cached messages in Outlook, that's only going to cache the Outlook messages that are archived. Let's see. Just looking through a few more here on searches. Can you search all emails, two from an email address in one search? Couldn't do that with 3.5, had to search sender and then another for recipient. Yeah, you can search all emails from an email address in one search. So you saw that in the scope. You can search sender and recipient at the same time. So yeah, Joe, that will be something that you can use for sure. You can search that at the same time. Let's see. Can you search over previously searched results? So like a search within a search. Yeah, that would be something you could do within the advanced search. So yeah, we'll look at that. You can use and or in that advanced search. One moment here. Looking through some more here. Okay, the next one, this is good. Is there an extra license cost for that high-performance indexing engine? And yes, there is an additional, that is an additional module if you're going to want to be able to tie those all together. I would get with your territory rep to get information on how much that is, just a nominal thing. But yes, there is an additional license cost for that engine. Okay, with the deletion function of Office 365, can I delete all email anywhere in the mailboxes with the exception of specific folders? So yes, that is something that with Deletion Manager you can delete. It's all policy-based. So yeah, you can delete messages based on age, based on different criteria that you set. So the idea of deleting email anywhere in the mailbox except specific folders, you can do that. That's something that you'd have to just specify within the Deletion Manager on what you're deleting and how old and where that would be located. Good. These are great questions. We have a lot of them, so this is good. I'm glad we left a lot of time for questions. So the next one is, does it index content within attachments like PDF, doc, etc.? So the index is going to index the files and the email messages, but the content within the attachments, that's a good question. I don't think it indexes the content in the attachment. It's just going to index the attachment itself. I'll get back to you on that, Paul. That's a good question. I'll double check. I'm pretty sure that it's just the files that it indexes and not the content of the files. Any new reports? Specifically, can we now report on total messages contained in the archive for a user, querying the database directly instead of just using the archive job logs? There aren't any new reports in Retain 4. There are things that we're working towards on reporting, but yeah, the reporting is the same in previous versions. Let's see. Can you view calendar items in a calendar view instead of a list? The way it stands now, it is just the calendar is just showing it as a list of calendar items. Let's see. So it'll show the date of the calendar item and whatnot, but it's still shown as a list, not as a calendar view. So the next one is the redaction process, still the same process as in 3.5.1 using the publisher. Will I be able to redact attachments, which is currently not possible in 3.5.1? The publisher hasn't been updated with Retain 4, so it is the same process for redaction and strikeout. So yeah, it's the same thing. You'll be able to redact and strike out text and body, etc., email addresses, but attachments are not. Yeah, it's the same as it's been before. Let's see. Can you search at domain.com for emails to and from a domain? Yes, absolutely. That's something that you can search for. That would be in that new search tool. So you can search a domain. You can search email addresses, etc. Oh, and then it looks like we have a plug from. We were talking about the cloud. We have a plug for Viable Solutions, which is one of our great partners. Yes. They have a cloud as well to be able to offer and host Retain. Great. Glad you're on the call, Viable Solutions, and glad that you offer that cloud for us. So, and that's good. And it looks like if you see there in the Q&A, Elliot from Viable Solutions is giving a little plug on that cloud, which is amazing. They have Guava Cloud Services for small businesses. And then Lawrence, thank you, from the UK, has chimed in on the cloud saying that the offering and what is there does vary by region. Next, is the regex support included in the publisher tool? These are, once again, thanks everyone for your questions. Wonderful questions. And we're really getting to a lot of good stuff here, and I appreciate that. So regex is just, limited regex terms are just supported within the new search tool. So in the publisher, no. It is just something that is done within the search tool. But what's great is that you could do the search from here, then export them to the publisher. And so you could take out those regex terms or search the regex terms within the search, export them to the publisher, and then do it from there. But no, it does not have regex terms at this time. Now, so yes, once again, the publisher hasn't been changed much with this new release. Next one, awesome. Looking forward to upgrading. If we had a snag, did we just put in a ticket? Yes. Once again, if you have issues when you're upgrading, our support's available to help you. You can submit a ticket on support.guava.com, or feel free to give us a call too. Support's here and available, ready to help you. If you haven't had an experience with support, I'm going to give them a plug here. They're great. We have great support. For North America, it's North American-based support. It's in Utah. For EMEA, it's in Germany. So you have support that's regional. Yeah, feel free to give them a call if you need help in this upgrade. Next in the search, is there a select all option when searching for users in a specific department? Maybe give me a little bit more detail on that one, what you mean by that on the select all. Let's see, does the stubbing feature for GroupWise work correctly and worth using? I think we have a knowledge base article about stubbing. I won't go too in depth on this call about that. The best thing to do, Josh, is to go to support.guava.com and go to the knowledge base and look for stubbing. That'll give you really a lot of in-depth detail about stubbing. Let's see. Just for sake of time, I want to make sure we get to all this. With retained social, can policies be applied to any content and any account that goes to the compliance proxy, i.e. can a personal social media account be monitored? So the question is with retained social, can these policies be applied to personal social media accounts? And the answer is yes. So what happens is that anybody who's accessing social media at work, on the network, or if they have that agent on their machine, as they're accessing that and it's on the network or on a machine with that, it's going to monitor, filter, and archive all of their postings. So that's personal, corporate social media, etc. So yes, so if your employees are accessing social media at work and it's their personal social media and you're using Retain, those policies will apply to be able to monitor and filter what is being posted there. I had a comment in here. And thanks for backing me up. It looks like content is indexed now, and I'll make sure on that. But from what we see here, it looks like that the content is indexed, content of the files, which is amazing. So, like I said, I'll double check that and make sure everybody. Just as a reminder, this webinar is recorded, so you will be getting a webinar recording soon. And any of these questions like this about content being indexed, I'll make sure to answer that in there. So the next one is the deletion manager deleting messages from the mail system as it archives the files. Yes, so you can set that up. The deletion manager will actually delete messages from, it works for Exchange, Office 365, and GroupWise, and it will actually delete them from off of the email system. And So you set up a policy. So say you want things that are older than 90 days to be taken off of your email system. You can set those policies up in Retain, and Retain will get those deleted off of there and make sure they're archived. Okay. Any publisher tool for Mac OS? Not at this time. The publisher or the web or the standalone archive viewer, as another name for it, is just available for Windows at this time. Okay, that's a lot of questions. Let's see if I have any others in the chat here. Okay. Okay, there's some questions about the different add-ons, the different modules. We talked about that earlier on, that Retain has these different pieces. So the base for Retain is the Retain server and email archiving. That's the base price for Retain, and that's price per user. And then so once you have that, to add the other modules on, like the social media or the mobile, it's just a nominal fee for that additional module. So once you have Retain and you have it on the email side, adding those other things on, it's a nominal fee. It's not like you having to buy a whole other archiving system. And then let's see. So if I wanted to use Retain to manage my Office 365 email retention, can I have a policy for mail items and a policy for calendar items? Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to Retain, and it has policy-based archiving. So you can base those policies, global policies. You can have a per-user policy. You can have time-based policies. There's a lot of different policies you can set up. But yes, you can have policy items for mail and a separate one for calendar. So yes, there is policies that you can set that way. Let's see. Does the new indexing/search require its own box? The high-performance indexing engine, there's two ways to do it. There's the embedded high-performance indexing engine. And then once again, that's for smaller instances, smaller deployments. But if you have a larger deployment, you would have to have that indexing engine separate from the Retain system. You could do it as a VM, or you could set it up on a metal box, have its own box. But it doesn't require that. You could set it up as a VM. But yes, it does have to be separate from the Retain server itself. Is it Windows or Linux for the indexing? I'm pretty sure there's the ability you can do that on either Windows or Linux for the indexing and search engine. High performance search engine, or indexing engine, excuse me. Okay, it looks like that's all the questions we have right now, and we're about at our time. So once again, if there was any questions that didn't get answered or clarification, like I said, I will be sending out an email with the link to the recording and with clarification on a few of those questions. Thanks everyone for your time and for being here and for your participation in this webinar. Great participation, great number of attendees here. Be sure to upgrade to Retain 4 to take advantage of these items. And if you haven't, or if you're not currently using Retain, please feel free to try it out. You can go to guava.com to be able to download a free 30-day trial. You can get a quote for it as well there on guava.com. And feel free to give us a call as well if you'd like to at 866-GO-GUAVA. Thanks everyone once again for being here and for your interest in Retain. Hope to see you on the next webinar.